Hi, everyone. Robert here from Nova. This week, I'm here to share the latest changes and updates we've made to Nova, and specifically around new hotspot functionality, which we're really excited about. But before I get into it, Nova is a cloud-based drone mapping platform designed to help you create really powerful data products with that drone that you've got. So whether you're in wildland fire rescue, resource and forestry management, search and rescue, or any of the other hundreds of applications that folks have been using Nova for, we're here to help make that transition from raw data to usable and powerful product really seamless and easy. So getting into it this week, really focused on fire and really focused on helping firefighters find hotspots more effectively. Over the winter, we've been, debating ourselves a lot about how do we, make the most powerful hotspot product for firefighters? How do we take that next step? Now, it's one thing to build a model that can not only find hotspots, and then place them accurately on the landscape like this. But then how do you take it a step further and actually make this information incredibly meaningful and valuable to firefighters? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by clicking on the layer itself. And the first thing that we see is instead of that menu that used to exist up here where you had to decipher symbols, and while we loved it when we first built it, had some pretty obvious deficiencies once we started using it, we've transferred all of this into this inspector panel over here on the right-hand side. And right off the hop, we can get a ton of information about the flight and the hotspot layer itself. So we can see, right away, we can see, this is about a 22-mile flight. I can pop this open. I can toggle on my flight path, check my overlap, and also look at my scan area. There's filters, which we'll get into in a second here. We can look at hotspots again. See there's 154. We'll come back to this too. We can see hot areas. There's about 40,000 square feet of total burning area at this moment. And we can also see that there's about 1,400 acres covered in this one flight. So jumping back into the hotspot tab, we can see all of the previous functionality that we used to have. You can toggle on hex, so you get that 3D layer. You can view this as a heat layer. But in the point display, this is where the new functionality really comes in. So I now have this relative size toggle, which maybe in the future it makes sense to have this turned on by default, but for now it's turned off. So if I turn it on, I can suddenly see not just where all the hotspots are, but the relative size. And this is really important because some of the most, the best feedback we've got, and a lot of folks out there, it's like one thing to be able to know the location of that hotspot, but being able to actually convey that, hey, not all hotspots are exactly the same. And that if I have, what we regularly see with just our points, I can't decipher whether this is like a really big, burning thing, or if it's, just like some roots that are burning under the ground that are the size of the fist. The model is really good at finding all of the heat. So it was really incumbent on us to find a way to display that information more effectively to the end user, which in this case is the firefighter. So I've got my point selected. I turn on relative size. And now when we go to make a map, what firefighters get is an actual way better understanding of what that heat actually looks like. So they know that this section of fire over here, these hotspots, are way more prominent and obvious and won't be that hard to find, whereas these ones up here might be a little trickier to be able to distinguish and find, and it might take them a little bit longer. It also helps a lot for resource allocation because it gives us a better idea of how long it's going to take to put those hotspots out. These ones are probably going to take a long time to put out relative to these ones over here. So let's get back to our inspector panel. We can now see relative size of all of the hotspots. But if I get into filter, we've also added some new functionality here. So to start with, we still have our sensitivity slider, which changes the sensitivity of the model. We've also got our distance to perimeter here. So I can really easily toggle this on and off, and I can add, buffers so that we see hotspot as different colors depending on how far we are away from the perimeter. So that's a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to use, but really where this new filter section shines is in our ability to filter by temperature and by hotspot size. So here, what I can do, let's say, we're a little bit earlier on in the fire's life cycle. We're not necessarily in that cold trail or mop-up phase. We've still got a lot of heat to put out. I want to know where that is, and I want to know especially where the hot stuff is that remains. So what I can do, and we'll just zoom in here, what I can do is I can use this toggle here on the filter. I can change what we're seeing, and I only see the very hottest hotspots that are remaining on the landscape. We can see that this little guy here, and I can click on it, is really small, but still really super hot. So it gives us a lot more indication in terms of what's really burning and what's maybe smoldering or buried. The flip side here, let's bring this back down, is I can also filter by hotspot size. So we're like, actually, like right now, I've got heavy equipment, whatever out on the fire line. I just want to go put out those big hotspots. I can use our hotspot size toggle here to now just distinguish exactly where the biggest hotspots and probably the highest priority hotspots exist on the landscape. So let's say we click on this here. I can see that this is a fairly large hotspot, 15 feet by 15 feet. So these are the new filters. We're really, really excited about this. We've spent a lot of time engaging with users, chatting with folks, talking to stakeholders, really trying to find out what the best way, what the most meaningful impact we can make. And we hope we got it right. We spent a lot of time this winter debating and talking and really kind of ironing this feature out, but we've still probably fallen a little bit short. So if you get in there, you add some data, and if you want to tell us what we think we've missed, whether it's a small thing or a big thing, let us know. It's really what's making Nova as powerful as it is just finding out from folks exactly how they're using it and how they want to use it. So the next big change this week is our search down here at the bottom. You might have noticed, but as I move my cursor across the landscape, you can see our coordinates changing down here. I can now jump down here and also click on it and search for anything. I can search for a layer over here on the side, on the left-hand side of the screen. I can search for, a landmark. I can search for coordinates. Whatever we're looking for, you can now get there really quickly. So in this case, I've got fire K21633 here. So let's jump over to that one, K21. Let's jump there. Boom, brings me right to it. I can see this hotspot map, and I can start toggling things on and off just like I was doing before. Thanks so much for your time. We're really excited about this. We think it's meaningful, but really that's going to play out as people start to use it. So, head on the app, upload some data, tell us what you think. We're really looking forward to it. And also like and subscribe to this video if you haven't already. It really helps us get the word out. And then finally, tune in next week because we have another really crazy big update coming out. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Bye.